Greetings YouTube viewers and welcome to another video on the Ian Bullock channel. Today it is August the 22nd, 2023 and it's a sunny Tuesday morning on really the most beautiful summer's day here in central Norwich, Norfolk, East Anglia in the UK, and I'm standing in the garden of our home here in Norwich and want to talk to you today a little bit more about my two garden ponds, which have featured on my YouTube channel before, but I just thought I'd give you a little bit of an update. One of the reasons I wanted to record this video is because I realised this week that the ponds here in our garden in Norwich are actually 10 years old, having been designed and created and installed back in the summer holidays of 2013. So I thought this would be a good time just to update you and show how much they've changed over the past decade. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just show you some snippets from a video that I did for my YouTube channel 9 years ago, and that will show you what the site of the ponds looked like before we had them built, and it will also show you what they looked like when they had been newly created and before I'd actually put any fish or anything in them. So what I'm going to show you now is just a flashback to 2013 and 2014 here in the garden of our house in central Norwich. So this, viewers, is what the garden looked like 10 years ago in 2013. Apologies for the quality here. This is a recording of a recording, but this video actually has had 9,000 views or more on my YouTube channel. What you can see here on the left is the garden shed, which still exists. On the right, there's a kind of Wendy house, playhouse, which my son Greg used to use. And behind the picket fence there, you'll see what was my original pond, which was a plastic moulded pond I put in myself, but was never really very good. And behind the swing there was a kind of dumping ground with a few weeds in it. So that area was where we were going to have the new garden ponds in the summer of 2013. So the following year, April 2014, I recorded this video, which was kind of the big reveal really. This was the finished article the contractor had left. That was the Wendy house there, still on the right. But he had created these lovely brand new ponds for me. The lower one is the nature pond, and the raised one was my Goldfish Pond, and we had bamboo screening all the way along the back, and then the shed, the garden shed, is on the left hand side. So this is what things looked like after he'd removed all of that mess, had an excavator in, and had created these two lovely new ponds for my garden. This was the nature pond, which at the time had quite a lot of tadpoles in it. And in a moment you'll see the fish pond. Unfortunately, when he built these ponds, really the filtration and pumping systems that he installed were either non-existent or totally underpowered. And you can see even in this video I had terrible problems from the very start with blanket weed and algae, and everything became very messy. The kind of ecological balance of both the ponds wasn't really working. The plants hadn't really established themselves, and at that point I hadn't even bought any goldfish. But you can see from this picture that the pond, although it was brand new, it really didn't look particularly good, and the pumping system was very, very underpowered. So it was a brand new pond and I was very pleased with it, but it's taken a little bit of work over the years to get it how I want it to be, and you'll see that in a moment in the 2023 video, 10 years on. So here we are in summer 2023, folks. Drum roll please, because I'm going to show you what the garden ponds look like now, 10 years on from when they were first created here in the garden. You can see the weather is looking beautifully sunny today, and the ponds and the garden really are looking at their best. The one thing that you might notice just on the right hand side there is that the Wendy house, my son Greg's playhouse, has been dismantled a couple of years ago, So we got rid of that. Not quite sure what we're going to do with that site at the moment, but that was slightly in the way and falling to pieces. But essentially, you know, the ponds are much the same as when they were first created. They've obviously matured and developed. And also, I've had to make quite a few changes in terms of the technical side of things to keep them going and to create the best possible environment for the wildlife and the goldfish in terms of filtration systems and things like that. But here on the right hand side we have the frog and nature pond, much grown and overgrown from when it first started, and on the left the goldfish pond, the raised pond, which is still doing well and flourishing 10 years on from when it was first built. So this is what I call my frog pond. Interestingly, when it first started, I did introduce some tadpoles into it, and it had a lot of frogs, a real lot of frogs for many years, and frog spawn and tadpoles and all that kind of thing. In recent years, haven't noticed quite so many frogs. I don't know whether that's something that I'm doing or whether that's just the way things are going with garden wildlife generally, but I don't think I've seen any frogs spawn this year. And at one point I thought that I didn't have any frogs in this pond at all, but I do occasionally hear them croaking, so they are in there. I'm not sure that they're reproducing quite as well as in the past, and I have actually considered trying to pinch someone's frog spawn or frogs from another pond and pop them in, but I don't think that's actually allowed under wildlife legislation, moving wildlife from one site to another. So yeah, the frog pond, as I call it, is still going. Get all sorts of nature in here. Dragonflies, beetles. We have newts that like to go under those little stones on the bottom of the pond. I've seen newts in there definitely. And also, I don't know, beetles of all kinds, butterflies, that sort of thing. So it does well in terms of being a nature pond. And it certainly brings a whole range of wildlife to the garden that might not come here ordinarily. One of the other things that you'll notice about my frog and nature pond is that we have an awful lot of water lilies in here at the moment, probably too many, but I'm letting them grow at the moment, and some of them of course are in flower. I think I can see 5 flowers there in the background. One of the things that I really like about this pond is that the birds love it, and they use it for drinking and also for bathing. So it's become like a kind of glorified bird bath, really. And because it's shelves, they get in here at the shallow end off this brick weave, and they dip themselves in there and drink and wash their feathers. And it's very, very popular with the birds during the day. So that's, in its own way, helping to bring bird life into our garden in Norwich, which is great. Now, as I was saying earlier, one of the problems that we had when these ponds were first built is that the filtration and pumping systems that were put in them were really, really underpowered and not at all up to the job. So we had lots and lots of problems with blanket weed and algae and all sorts. So over the years, I've tried several different pumps and filtration systems to try and really soup them up to make sure that they're more powerful and up to the job. And I'll just show you what's currently going on with the filtration system here on the nature pond, the one on the right. So tucked away at the back here, this is to keep the water clean and fresh and healthy. At the back here, hidden away behind these flowers, you can see we've got fairly powerful filtration system there, compressor filter I think that's called. And under the water lilies there's a pump which is pumping water out of the pond and into here, and then the water goes through a UV system and also filtration sponges, and it comes out of another pipe there. One goes in and one goes out, and then you'll have noticed that the water is pumped back down the side here through this black tube, and it emerges there. So the water is being constantly cycled through the pond, and that keeps it nice and fresh. UV, ultraviolet, what that does I think is it kind of kills algae cells, weed cells, and clumps them together so that they get caught up in the filter, and that helps to keep the water certainly pure and clean, but also you don't get that green kind of soupy algae look. And as you can see from it being mid-August, August the 22nd, in full sunshine, the water quality really is pretty good, and I think that's down to the filtration system being much more powerful and really doing its job properly. So I'm pretty pleased with that on the whole. Over on the left hand side, of course, we have the fish pond, the Goldfish Pond, which is raised up from the ground, and the idea of that when I first had it designed and built was that we'd be able to sit on the side of it and sort of watch the fish swimming around under the water lilies. And that similarly has had filtration problems over the years, but I've now got a pretty good system installed, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. I'm just going to introduce you now to my friends, the goldfish, and I'm hoping they're going to come up, but normally they hear my voice or see me. Now, they're under this netting at the moment because when I first had the ponds built, I didn't really want to put netting on them because I always think netting sort of spoils ponds a bit. But in the end, I was so concerned about the possibility of a heron coming down and taking all of my fish in one go, which people had warned me about, that in the end I relented and covered it up with this, well, sort of nylon netting really, held down by bricks. And that seems to do the job. In fact, I'd never really seen any herons on the pond, so I thought that maybe that was a bit of a fallacy. But then a couple of months ago, I looked down from the bedroom window, and just in this area here where the birds do have their bird baths, there was an absolutely massive heron standing on those little pebbles, having a look around to see what it could find. So they're enormous birds, and herons are obviously in the area, so I feel a lot safer and more secure knowing that this pond is securely netted. In a moment I'm going to feed the fish, but I've just taken some of the net off just to help the iPhone to focus a little bit more on these fish rather than focusing on the netting. I think I've got something like 20 goldfish in here at the moment. The one you can see at the front there in the middle, the speckled one, he's one of the oldest. We call him Blobhead. Now, the reason we call him Blobhead is because he's got kind of like an orange spot on the top of his head. And he was one of the first that we bought. And I think, as I say, there's about 20 now. That's Blobhead there. When we first introduced fish, I think that would have been 2014, so something like 9 years ago. So I think we've got about 20 goldfish in this pond at the moment. I'm just going to feed them so that you can see them moving around. Here we go. Just try and pop a bit of this food in. There we go. They should come up for the food there. We've got about 20 goldfish, and this started off in 2014 when my son Greg and I went to Notcutt's garden centre and bought, I think it was 4 goldfish, and popped them in, just the 4. 2 weeks later we bought another 4, and 2 weeks later another 4. So we started off with 12 goldfish, and I can tell you that in the last 9 years since we started, I've never bought any more goldfish for this pond. So these ones have obviously bred fairly contentedly. Not all of the original 12 have survived, apart from Blobhead on the left there, that one. He's definitely one of the originals. But yeah, I've never put any new ones in, so I'm hoping that that's a sign that they're happy and healthy and contented with the water quality and the environment in which they live. So I'm taking that as a positive at the moment, that I haven't had to buy any more fish or restock. I'll just talk to you a little bit more about why the water in this fish pond is so clear. And that's really down to the technical aspects, I suppose, the filtration system. That waterfall at the back that you can see is integral to that. But if you look just down here, I don't know whether you'll be able to see it or not, but at the bottom there, that kind of plasticky looking thing is the pump, and that pumps water out of the pond on a 24/7 basis. And that goes round to here, the shed, which is sort of the engine room really of the filtration system. And so water is coming in from the pond, from that pump. Now initially it's going into this unit here that you can just about see underneath this black plastic contraption, and that is a UV ultraviolet lighting system. So the water is passing in through the ultraviolet light and out the other side. It then comes up this pipe and it goes into this quite mighty compressor filter system. And then on the top here, where you can see there's a little light just here, that's more UV, so that's passing through more UV lighting, going through the filter sponges past the UV, and then I think it goes out through this pipe at the back here and round the back of the shed. And I'll just take you round here, round the back of the shed and down through that waterfall back into the pond. So the water is being constantly cycled and also exposed to UV and passed through the filtration sponge system. So that's really why on a hot day in sort of mid to late August we have this very clear and clean water. So I'm pleased with how that's going, and I think that really benefits the fish in terms of the health of the water and the health of the whole system really. So it's a good thing, it seems to be working well. So you might have been watching this video and wondering why on earth has Ian Bullock got a fish in his pond. It's the one just below the water lily there that's got various kind of lumps and bumps and warts all over it. Now I've absolutely no idea what those lumps and bumps are, but that fish has had those for as long as I can remember really, and doesn't seem particularly troubled by them, doesn't seem to be spreading them to any other fish. So I've just kind of left him to get on with it really. He eats well, he seems quite lively, and I'm sort of giving him the benefit of the doubt really, but not quite sure what that problem is. If you know, please comment in the comments below here on YouTube. One of the things you might have noticed, viewers, about these ponds here in my garden in Norwich is that they are very sunny. They're in a very sunny location, which is good in a way because it means that they're well lit and they're light and bright and you can see the fish and all that. The downside, of course, is that they get incredibly hot and are exposed to the sun most of the day on sunny summer's days. So that makes it difficult in terms of the temperature of the water, but also algae and blanket weed and problems like that. So I have often thought that probably if I'd had my time over again, I'd have put the pond over here, which is this rather gloomy corner of the garden here, which never really gets a lot of sunlight at all. And I thought that probably would be quite a good position for a pond, so it was out of the sunlight. Having said that, of course, it is a bit gloomy and probably would collect the leaves from all these trees and bushes and things. So yeah, I don't know, it's a difficult one that, isn't it really? But unfortunately the site where I needed the ponds was in this very exposed sunny location, and you can see from this video that they do look really nice in the sunshine on a summer's day. So you've seen my goldfish in the pond from above, but I was thinking of a way in which YouTube viewers might be able to see the fish kind of face to face and have a dive into the pond. Now back in the 1970s, during my kind of childhood and teenage years, I was very much into fish keeping and also photography, and I also used to follow the documentaries of the scuba diving pioneer Jacques Cousteau with great interest. And this would have been like all my dreams come true back in the 1970s. Of course, we didn't have the technology then. But what I thought I'd do is I'd use this glass flower arranging vase from the kitchen cupboard and try to put the iPhone 13 mini into it and see whether or not we can submerge it so that you will indeed come face to face with my community of goldfish. So a little bit of a world first. I've never actually tried this before, but we'll have a go, and hopefully the phone won't get covered in water. You probably won't hear me speak very much because the phone will be inside the vase. So let's have a go, folks. Right, so we're inside the vase now, and we're going to go see if we can go underwater here. Here we go. It seems to be working at the moment, so I can certainly see the fish swimming around near the camera. That one is blobhead, the big one near the camera there at the moment. So yes, that does work. I wonder whether it would work or not. I was thinking of a way of trying to get the camera underwater without it getting wet. I think there are probably things you can buy. But I thought maybe this flower arranging vase, this tall glass square vase, might do the job. And sure enough it has. So yeah, that's an interesting view under the water of the Goldfish Pond here in central Norwich. Never done that before. So that's about it really, YouTube viewers, for this video from the garden of my home here in Norwich, Norfolk. I hope you've enjoyed a tour of the garden and also a closer look at the two garden ponds, and even, amazingly, surprisingly, a close-up encounter with my goldfish underwater. This is Ian Bullock signing off and saying goodbye. Thank you for watching, and please keep subscribing to the Ian Bullock channel here on YouTube.